Another thing I want to talk about is in the second chapter. It's called Another Way. And the reason I want to talk about that is that, for the most part, there's more than one way to get where we're going. You know, a simple choice that you have to make: which school am I going to go to? Here's this school that if I finish there, I'll get this kind of a job. There's this school that it has such a wider curriculum, and I think that I'm attracted to that. Maybe I want to go there, no matter what kind of job I get. So there's choices laid out for us, and we have to make them. We can't let life happen to us, because we are people loved by God and capable of making choices. So I like to think about Angela's choices. One choice she made very early on was that she would remain a virgin. Now, it would be countercultural today, but in her day, that was really countercultural, that a woman would remain unmarried, because most women who were unmarried were prostitutes, because there were so many wars going on with soldiers coming and going and their camp followers. So they had lots of women with them. But then, in the world that we could talk about, women had two choices. They either became nuns or they became mothers and wives. So you either got married or you went to the convent. There weren't many other choices. So Angela decided on another way. She would remain a virgin, but she would not go to a convent. She would not go behind the wall. She would stay in the world as a consecrated virgin. That was different. In fact, it was so different that many people were scandalized by it. And after Angela died, that really caused a big to-do. In fact, it was hard on the company that she founded, because parents would not allow their children, their girls, to enter the company, because they thought that was pretty shady for a girl to be a virgin and to stay in the world. But Angela felt that it was the place to do, it was the thing to do, to be a virgin, consecrated in the world. And she loved the world. She had so many friends, men and women. You would say she really had to have loved God in such a way that she could keep her focus on remaining faithful to her consecrated virginity. Doesn't mean that married women aren't loving God. Doesn't mean that at all. It's that her choice in her day, especially, people talk about, nuns or whatever. They've heard of them teaching in schools and being available, visible. Not in Angela's day. Nuns were at the cloister, period. You didn't see them. They were behind a wall. Now, there was a lot of corruption there, too, but the idea was that you were safe behind a wall, or you got married and your husband protected you from whatever. But Angela said, there's another way. So we have to say, what about our choices? What do we go through? What happens if I go to this school and not that school? Maybe it doesn't make a great deal of difference, but because you may have a goal in mind, it does make a difference. And your friends may say, why are you going there? Go over here, it's much more fun. And you may say, no, that's not what I'm after. But it's like, you have to know what you're after when it comes to choosing a school. Certainly, if you're going to choose a way of life, that I will remain single. I know a lot of single women who chose to be single because that's what they wanted. They didn't want a man in their life. They didn't dislike men, but they didn't feel called to get married. And they certainly didn't want to be nuns, God forbid, because that whole image carries a lot of luggage with it. And you see, today, girls have lots of choices. You could be a mother and still do something else, like you do. You're a mother, and you are also a teacher at a businesswoman, and you're not married. So you are in a position of saying, well, I must not like men. That's not true either, because you love everybody. It's finding out what you want in life. And Angela tells us, you'll know those choices the more your conscience is clear. She talks about obeying the Holy Spirit. And that's a tough one, because when am I obeying the Holy Spirit? When am I just doing what I want to do? That's not always easy, but she tells us how to do that. As our conscience becomes purer or clearer, then we know that if we're following that clarity that is within us, that we are doing God's will the best we know how. That's so important, because in today's world, there's so many choices. Women can be astronauts now. I mean, just think of that. And there have been some women who have wanted to be astronauts since they were little girls. So they had that focus. That's what they wanted. And the same way with women who want to be mothers. They want to be a mother. They've known that forever. And sometimes they're the ones who can't have children. And that is such a terrible burden for them, not to be able to have children. So many times they make everybody their children. That becomes generative in that way, because as human beings, our DNA tells us we have to be generative, put our lives out there. So, but choices can be made, and when we make the right choice, there's such a peace that comes. And when we make the wrong choice, there's something that niggles in the back of our heads and says, this isn't fit or something, then we have to make another choice.